Deja vu. Yeah, I submitted 2 lightning talks. Yeah, they'll pick one of them. And pick both. Good times. So yes, this is engineered chaos, breaking prod and getting away with it. I will just say, because of the people that are here, getting away with it means being allowed to do it in the first place, not hiding your tracks and getting away with it like that. I saw this is a late addition to the slide deck. I saw this tweet that Paco retweeted saying about talks, how to fix stuff wins so many hearts and minds. This is kind of like that, but instead of how to fix stuff, this is like how to break things and people and get away with doing that. So, as you know, my name's Oliver. I actually work at Sky Betting and Gaming in the core tribe. We don't have teams at Sky Bet, we have tribes. And I work as a platform engineer, SRE, DevOps, DevSec test ops, and I'm also one of those pesky sysadmins that Darren was talking about yesterday that cause you all that grief. In the core tribe, we handle quite a few things that are integral to the rest of the business in Sky Bet, namely login SSO, registration, customer verification, and registration and payments, deposits, withdrawals, that sort of thing, account services, and responsible gambling tools to stop people gambling if they have a problem. The point of that is that list of things are integral to the business, and when we break, the website, the apps break, and not just the Sky Bet website, but anyone that uses Sky Bet to do any sort of authentication, so like the odds checker apps and your fantasy football, Super Six if you play that, all that sort of stuff breaks when we do. The point is we are, vital to the business, and so we need to make sure that our shit is up to scratch. So definition time. Chaos engineering is the discipline of experimenting on a distributed system in order to build confidence in the system's capability to withstand turbulent conditions in production. Basically, throw lots of stuff at it, see if it breaks, see how it breaks, and then try and not make that happen again. This is very popular in the Silicon Valley thing, and one of the main kind of pioneers of this is Netflix. So Netflix have quite a few tools that they use to do this. You may have heard of some of them already. The main one that everyone knows about is called Chaos Monkey. Chaos Monkey is a service that sits watching things and just breaking containers and microservices and seeing what happens to the rest of the system when that happens. Netflix being Netflix, take it one step further. They have another one called Chaos Kong, and this is like a process and scripts that will wipe out an AWS region, not for everyone, just for them, so they can see how their apps would respond to an entire region going away. Quite good. And the final one that I want to draw attention to is Chap. This is like an automated platform that they use for testing how chaotic things affect their systems. So they'll spin up like a control system and a system with like disk I/O problems or network latency simulated on it, throw some tests at it, bring the systems down, and then do some automated reporting based on that. Netflix have a very technical approach to chaos and that sort of thing. The other big-ish technical company you may have heard of, Google, they have a kind of different approach towards chaos engineering, and they do it more on a behavioral and process-based thing. So this is an article from Kripa Krishnan, who at the time, she was the head of cloud tech, I think, at Google. And failures happen, and resilience drills help organizations prepare for them. So this is more about you testing how your engineers respond to incidents rather than how your systems respond to incidents. Both the Netflix kind of technical automated approach and the Google's behavioral process approach boil down to asking questions, what would happen if? So what would happen if AWS region went down? Well, Netflix know that it would be all right because stuff would recover. And you can apply this to anything. So I used to work with a guy that had a diesel generator in his house that was plugged into his fridge and his network rack. Because what would happen if the power in his house went down? Well, he still wanted to go on the internet. He still wanted to be able to control his parents' computer on the Windows domain that he'd set up for some reason. And he still wanted cold Mountain Dew. Yeah. So the reason we do this is because if you do have a major system failure, you don't want the first time you deal with that major system failure to be when it's actually failing. The example being, if you remember this last year, nearly about a year ago, over Bank Holiday weekend in May last year, BA had a massive computer system failure, which grounded, thousands of flights, tens of thousands of passengers affected, and cost them a lot of money. The incident review of that pointed out that the problem had been caused by a contractor unplugging a UPS, plugging it back in too quickly, and making stuff break. And then they tried to fail over to their disaster recovery data center, and stuff that they were expecting to be working there was not working after all. So you don't want the first time you fail over to your disaster recovery site to be when you're actually needing it in an incident. Yeah, so this was some of the follow-up. Quite strong words. Entirely inadequate explanation. Yeah, there's no point having backups if they don't work. That's the bottom line. Whether that be a backup, data backup, or a backup system, or a backup data center. So why do this? I have a thing I talk to our devs about quite a lot, which is called the 3 a.m. test. So anything you are putting into production, writing documentation about, or bringing live, if I get woken up about it at 3 in the morning to fix it because it's broken, I want to be comfortable doing that. I want to not be having to, slap my cheeks to wake myself up. I want to be able to quickly get to the documentation. Someone mentioned instant response in my pajamas. Another Packer reference, there we go. Yeah, I don't want to have to get changed. So this is the Core Tribe logo. This is how we do it in Core. Apologies if this is a little bit stinted. My notes are on that laptop over there in the corner. So it's just trying to remember what slide comes next. So yeah, how we do this in the Core Tribe, we have a series of events every week called a fire drill. Not that kind, a different kind. So these aren't like performance tests and load tests. These are tests of how we respond to different incidents. We make them as incident-like as possible because there's no point practicing for something that is nothing like what a real incident would be like. So before we start these fire drills, we have like a little meeting where we give as little information as possible just to give the context, because if you're woken up at 3 a.m., you know it's 3 a.m. and you know what's happening. But we simulate different times of day in these fire drills. So we cover off the day of the week and the time of day and sporting events on now or starting soon. This is really important for us because depending on what is happening in the world of sports and current affairs, our site will be busier or quieter at different times of day. If there's like a boxing match in the middle of the night where we would otherwise be silent, we would have a lot of traffic on site and it may affect the way that we handle the incident. The environment in which we are going to work in. So primarily we work within our staging environments, but we also do a lot in our disaster recovery environment because that's exactly like live, right? And finally, the thing we cover off is the Slack channel to work in. So I mentioned we make these as incident-like as possible. At Sky Betting and Gaming, we use Slack for our main communication method. As soon as we get an incident come through, one of the first things that's done is creating an incident channel with the incident number and a description of the channel, description of the incident. that everyone who's working on that problem gets invited to. The reason for that is twofold. First off, it gives us like a chronological breakdown of what's happened when during that incident. So when we come to review the incident afterwards, we've got a list of who did what and when. And secondly, it prevents crosstalk in more general channels. Say you've got two incidents going on at the same time. If you have two incident channels that are both specifically about that incident, then it prevents it bleeding over into other general channels. So the people that are involved in this fire drill, we have the Master of Chaos. This is the guy that is orchestrating this fire drill, making it happen, breaking the things, and pretending to be the people affected. So this guy will play the role of the service desk, going, "Oh, login is broken," or something to that effect. Secondly, we have the engineers that are actually responding. We make this as incident-like as possible, as I say. So in a real incident, we would have two developers on call and a platform engineer. So all of those will be taking part in this fire drill. Our incident commander, who is the one that keeps everyone in line, and it's their job to kind of direct the engineers that are responding to the incident and pass messages between them and the rest of the business, so that the engineers can focus on just fixing the thing rather than dealing with comms out to the business and all that not so fun stuff. We also have the SLM, whose job it is to keep everyone in line, not just the engineers. It's often akin to that. That's us, by the way. This is the SLM. They have to manage the business communications and relationships with other areas of the business and third parties, all that sort of stuff. So they are always, or nearly always, present on a fire drill because they would be present in a real incident, and we make these incidents as like as possible. Finally, there are other third parties that may be part of an incident depending on the scope of it. So this may be other teams and tribes within the business. This may be third-party providers like payment providers or verification partners and that sort of thing. It's very difficult to get third parties involved in testing to break things because they don't like even pretending to break stuff because they have SLAs. So these are generally played by the person who is orchestrating the fire drill. Now that can get pretty complicated if I am running a fire drill and I have to play the service desk and a random infrastructure person who just happens to be needed for this problem, and a third-party payment provider, and another tribe in the business. So we built a tool that kind of handles all that communication and sends messages into Slack pretending to be different people nicely, not like to try and circumvent security and emulate being someone else. It's very obviously a fake account, but yeah, it's just to make it look more realistic and keep people in the mindset of pretending that this is a real problem rather than just your Thursday afternoon that you're spending pretending to break things. So talking of pretending to break things, these are the sort of things we break. We will pretend that servers in a cluster go down and see how the cluster responds. We will break things with network latency, disk I/O problems, see things queuing up, see how apps respond to that. If they fall over, then we need to do some more work. Blade failure, all that fun stuff. Has anyone seen, I assume a lot of people will have seen, the Tom Scott talk, Single Point of Failure? Yeah? A few nods. So this is based on the pretend day that someone maliciously input code into Google's system that made it stop checking passwords, and so anyone could log into any account if you knew the email. So the concept of doing a bodged code deploy or a intentionally malicious code deploy is also something that we've toyed with, and that's probably more your interests. So any of those things breaking can be affecting any of the many services that I mentioned earlier that we run as core. Then we get to the more process and behavioral ones that we like to do. So we get a message into our channel that says, we've just spotted a tweet that's got a link to Pastebin, and there's a load of our customer IDs and passwords and credit card details. And we go, right, well, let's respond to that as if it was real. And then if that ever does happen, then we kind of know what we need to do. If your entire office is underwater, what do? You can't get to work. ISO 9001, there's been a lot of talk about international standards yesterday, but ISO 9001 says, well, you've got a plan for that. Great. I've got a piece of paper that says what I need to do if my office is underwater. What happens in real life? So over Christmas, we had a mandatory work from home, well, not necessarily home, work from anywhere that isn't the office, to prove that, A, we could handle the capacity of people on the VPN, there weren't business critical services that people didn't notice when they were just working from home for a day, that they couldn't get to when on the VPN, all that fun stuff. Zombies are approaching your data center, and you have 15 minutes before you lose power. This is my favorite. This one is bigger than just us in core. This is an entire business-wide thing. It's imperative that you get the backing of your company with things like this, because the amount of resource that goes into taking the entire company tech team away to fail over to a DR site and run stuff and then fail back, that's a lot of resource for what on the face of it is nothing really. You don't gain anything other than like a warm fuzzy feeling that if it were to happen for real, you could do it. So this is something that I really enjoy doing, and it has been really fruitful doing this. We've iterated on documentation and all that sort of stuff, and we're in the situation now where if we did have to invoke DR, then like even junior engineers would be able to follow the documentation and get us into a state where we are back to a working state. Did I mention that we make these as incident-like as possible? Right. So, because we're very agile, we do agile retrospectives. So we have post-its and marker pens, and we write our feelings down and put them on the wall and discuss them. So we cover what went well, what didn't go well, and any actions that we need to take for next time. Stick them on the wall and discuss, and then the next time we have a fire drill, the exact same actions go up, and we say, yeah, we need to change that next time. So these are some of the things that we've learned as doing this for quite a few months. In fact, over a year now. It's not easy when you're regulated. So I mentioned that Netflix do chaos engineering and they just break stuff without any care in the world. That's fine for them. If Netflix want to, say, break HD video and serve like 480p only to customers, that's all right. Like, they'd have some angry customers, but as far as I'm aware, there's no other problems with that. If we were to break the ability for customers to withdraw money, if we were to break any responsible gambling tools that would allow problem gamblers to, place bets, then we would be in a lot of trouble, both with a regulator and in the media. It's not always about fixing the incident. So it's difficult to emulate stuff breaking. So an example is I wanted to break the ability for people to deposit with Apple Pay. So the way to break that is to turn off Apple Pay. Well, that's not really a viable option. So what we did is just shut the servers down and said, oh, they're broken. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your outlook, the engineers that I had working on that fire drill were quicker than me and spun them back up before I'd got them to actually do what I wanted them to do, which was go through a business process of notifying people and putting banners on the site to say Apple Pay is broken. They just turn the VMs back on. Right, okay, turn them off again. They're back on straight away. So I turned them off, stopped them from being turned on, sent him a message saying, stop, please. Can you like pretend they're broken? And then they followed the proper process of notifying areas of the business. Mitigation is always better than fixing root cause. It's easy to piss people off. So we, like I say, we do these in our staging environments primarily. And you'd think that people would be all right with us breaking a test environment instead of a live environment. But no, people would probably rather we break live. It's we do them for like 2 hours a week, but it still gets on people's nerves when they are delayed slightly because we've broken some key functionality on our staging environment. It's not always planned. So even though people may act like they would prefer live to break than a staging environment, they probably don't. And it is really difficult to get sign-off to do anything in a live environment that would cause actual problems for customers. That word planned is very key. So it would be now impossible to get sign-off to restart the entire app stack in live that would affect everything. No one would sign that off. So no one can do it. Unless you're me and you accidentally run the wrong automated job against the wrong environment and restart the entire app stack in live. So I'm not going to skip back to the slide, but you now mentioned the Google thing earlier. Organizations need to learn to respond to failures. They need to treat them as opportunities for learning rather than a stick to beat an engineer over the head with. So thankfully, that's something that my organization believes in too. And so instead of getting a bollocking, I got a, how did you do that? Well, I just ran this job. Yeah, you shouldn't be able to do that. True, let's change it. So, looking to the future, what do we want to do? Well, first, we want to automate all the things. Netflix do a great job of running automation on this already. Wouldn't it be good if the person running the fire drill and pretending to be the service desk doesn't actually know what's broken because some other automated job has broke it for them? We want to run more diverse scenarios. So, as we're getting to a point now where we're having to quickly think up new scenarios because we've done that many iterations of things that people can kind of guess what's coming. Those two kind of go hand in hand. If we automate things, then we can have limitless diversity in scenarios. I mentioned earlier about getting third parties involved. This, we make do pretending to be the third parties, but it just adds that other element of realism and immersion so you can properly feel like, yes, stuff is broken. Third parties are really involved now. And of course, we want to do our fire drills in live. We want to really break stuff, like really, really. I want to take down an AWS region. It would be good. It means we've got to get to AWS first, but that's by the by. So I did a blog about this. It covers kind of the similar stuff, and it talks more about the tool that we use to integrate into Slack. And that's it. Any questions? So the question, if I understand the question, is there some sort of like conglomerate of gambling companies that talk tech stuff to each other and do things like that, like banks do? There are. The tendency tends to be more that they are focused on regulatory and compliance rather than the technical side of things. But there has been a lot of talk recently about technical implementations for a program called GamStop. I don't know if you've heard of GamStop. It's a national database of people that self-exclude with gambling companies that any operators have to call on login, basically pass the details of the person logging in. If they match on this centralized database, then they aren't allowed to be logged in. So because that's the first real technical centralized thing for all gambling companies that they have to do, there has been a lot of collaboration around that sort of thing. I can only see that increasing, to be honest. Anything else? Yeah.
How would you be able to mitigate, for example, if there was someone who got insider information regarding a fire drill in line? How would you be able to mitigate if someone tried to target and attack them?
So the question is, if someone inside the company knew that we were going to fire drill in live, how would we know if they were going to, or how would we mitigate if they were going to plan an attack during that time? Don't know. Pray. The fire drills that we do, currently they're not at the kind of level where that sort of thing would be possible. Like, generally the things we're doing now is either breaking servers or running through fake processes, or running through processes in response to a fake scenario. So we don't really have like data exfiltration happening. We just like pretend it's happening. Anything else? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So the question was, getting third parties involved is definitely beneficial because it will allow us to simulate things further up the chain. Yeah, that's true. And that also kind of ties into this bit about automating and getting more diverse scenarios. And that if we as the responding people don't actually know what's broken, we the people that are setting up the fire drill and running it in the first place don't actually know what's broken, it makes it a lot more realistic when we're dealing with the problem. And it means that, I mean, you have to kind of get in the mindset when you're doing a fire drill. So you could just look in the monitoring system and see that the servers have been turned off, and that kind of ruins the effect. You've got to actually pretend that something's broken. Whereas if it is actually a third-party payment provider that has turned stuff off, you don't know. All you have is the alerts that would actually come through if it happened in real life. So yeah, it's definitely beneficial to do that. Any more? No? Thank you very much.